She has the link, should be logging on shortly.
Okay. And then you want to bring me your cell phone so they can text?
Of course.
Welcome. Have a seat. Okay, let me just check one thing. I'll be right back.
Are you going to be taking your CETA class here at the school?
I wasn't planning on that.
No, just for a permit?
Just for the permit, yeah. I wanted to get the manual more than anything I can,
Right.
except for finding it online.
So, are you planning on starting the CETA school soon?
I've got a relative who drives over the road, and I'm planning on getting my permit and just riding out with him for a while.
Oh.
Kind of going out that route, but I'll see. I might do this too.
Okay, let's see here. Hi, good afternoon, welcome. I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. We are also broadcasting this over to our Hudson location. We've got some students over there that are watching. I'm not sure if they're online yet or not. But first off, are any of you Wisconsin residents? You're a Wisconsin resident, okay? All right. Then the next question is, are you doing Class A or Class B? What's your intention?
I have a Class B. I want to get my Class A. I want to get passenger in school bus.
Okay. All right. And what are you going to do?
Class A.
Class A?
Class A.
A?
Probably Class A or B, whichever.
Okay. Well, Class A is going to give you a lot more job opportunities, but the test is more difficult because you got a trailer. The inspection is more involved because there's more to inspect. Backing it up is a challenge. And then when you're going forward, you can't hit a curb with the trailer, so you have to factor that into it. Okay, so I'm Bill Collins, the owner of the school. Started this 21.5 years ago. I've been in the driver training business in one shape, form, or another since 1979. I've had a license to drive Class A rig since 1975. I've driven over the road. I've been a local driver. I've been a dispatcher. Done all kinds of things. So what we're going to do today is talk about preparing for this permit test. I'm waiting on my word that these people have joined us over there in Wisconsin. So I really don't want to start without bringing them into this thing.
She is live and she has the phone number.
Okay, all right, awesome. Okay, welcome to those of you in Hudson. So I have for those of you in Hudson, 651-707-4672. If you want to text me questions, I have the phone right here. I'll be able to answer your questions in real time. The rest of you, feel free to ask questions at any time, all right? There are no dumb questions. So don't hesitate to ask questions as we go along. All right, so the first thing I want to do, take your handout that you've been given, open it up, and dig out this handout right here. We're going to talk about this handout, okay? Now, the first thing that you have to keep in mind to get a permit is that you are going to need not only your regular car license, but you're going to need a certified birth certificate. To get your permit, you'll need it again to get your license. You'll need it on every renewal. Or a passport, a valid passport. If you were born outside the U.S., the second page of this lists the documentation that one would need to get a permit. Okay? And so what is a certified birth certificate?
Original.
No. No, it's not the original.
From the Department of Vital Statistics.
Right, but how do you distinguish a certified one?
It's got a certified.
Exactly, it's got a stamp on it.
Hello.
These guys will not, why is that doing that? These guys will not accept the original. The one with your little baby footprint on it, they won't accept it. How crazy is that? I don't get that at all, but that's what the deal is.
You get a certified one, I take it?
Yeah, I think they're like $35 or something like that, aren't they? Okay. You go to whatever county you were born in.
You can go to any county now, I believe.
Oh, really?
I don't even think it has to be where you were born.
Okay, but you can do it online. Okay, that I know. So you'll need that to get the permit. Okay, we're going to talk about the health card a little bit later. That is optional. All right, now to prepare for the permit test, what I have in here is sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. That's everything you need to study for a Class A permit. If you were doing a B, you wouldn't need to worry about section 6. But this covers everything that you need to study in order to get a Class A permit. All right? Sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Now, for practice tests, I'm recommending, as your handout says here, cdltest.co. There are an abundance of practice test sites out there, and I'm telling you that cdltest.co is the most accurate one online that I've seen. And I've seen a lot of them that are no good. I've had a lot of people come to me and complain, I don't understand it. I take these practice tests and I pass the sucker every time, and I go take the, and I fail it. What the hell is going on? Well, if the practice test is no good, duh, it's not doing you any good. So make sure that you use cdltest.co as opposed to any of these others. I would caution you, don't go on YouTube and watch YouTube videos. How do you know what state that's from?
Yeah.
And you don't, okay? Now, Minnesota and Wisconsin are both using the AMVA manual, American Association Motor Vehicle Administrators. They're using the same manual. They're both available online. I like the online manual for a couple of reasons. One is when you use the online manual.
I got this app I downloaded for CDL prep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It also has a request from Texas and some other states.
You know, but you can pick your state where you live in.
Really?
Okay. Does that mean you're going to get the real deal though?
Probably not.
See, I would caution you about those things because part of it is those guys are trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just don't know that that they're going to give you the right thing here. Now, there's two things I like about the online manual, and that is, first of all, you can blow it up so you can read the dang thing. I like that. Okay. And then I also like the search engine that they have in this thing. The nice thing about the search engine, I guess I did have this on the screen here. The nice thing about the search engine is that when you search for something, it will look for exactly what you're looking for. So as an example, I'm going to type in slack adjusters, and it only takes me to that. not the singular, not the word just, but to only and exactly what I have typed in there. So I see that as advantageous, okay? So I like the online version of this thing as compared to the written one. The written one does have an advantage in terms of highlighting stuff. Then I also have on the handout here, the state also has an audio file for these sections of the manual. If you go to the state website, all these sections are available as an audio file. So and we use audio files here with students. Those of you in Hudson already have the audio file on the pre-trip inspection. But what that audio file is doing is that it is reading you the manual, okay? So as an example,
you will have to walk around the vehicle and point to or touch each item and explain to the examiner what you are checking and why. You will not have to crawl under the hood or under the vehicle. 10.1. All vehicles. Study the following vehicle parts for the type of vehicle you will be using during the CDL skills tests. You should be able to identify each part and tell the examiner what you are looking for or inspecting.
Here's an example.
10.1. Engine compartment. Engine off. Leaks and hoses. Look for puddles on the ground. Look for dripping fluids on underside of engine and transmission. Inspect hoses for condition and leaks.
So my point is this, that there's an audio file on the state website that can be very helpful to people to study for the test, okay? Now you have to do sections 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Section 6 is 43 minutes long, okay? Section 5 is 42 minutes long, so that's an hour and a half total, right? Section 1 is another 41 minutes, so I'm going to have 2 hours and 15 minutes. Section 3, 15 minutes, so now you're at 2.5 hours. And then section 2. I like watching people's expression when they see how long section 2 is. So you're looking at 6 hours worth of study, y'all. 6 hours worth of study to do this, okay? It's going to take you a while to read this manual. Wouldn't you agree? All right. So the audio file, you know, everything on the test comes out of the manual. There's actually a federal rule stating that. So the audio file can be a very helpful tool in helping you remember the things that you need to remember to pass this test. So I would recommend that you use the audio file here. All right. Okay, so now the next thing on my handout here is 1 permit test on any one subject is allowed per day. Your first and second attempt is free. If you fail 2 tests, they start charging you $10 for each test. Now, Wisconsin, what's your first name?
Debbie.
Debbie? So, Debbie, in Wisconsin, there's no charge for as many tests as you want, but they limit it to 5. If you don't pass in 5 tries, they'll tell you, well, come back in a year. So a little bit more pressure on you, but it costs you less money, okay? Minnesota, no limit. First and second are free. Then they start charging you $10 for each subject that you're testing on, okay? Second page of my handout. In Minnesota, the test is available on paper or with a computer. Most exam stations will require you to take your first test on the computer. The computers have headphones you can listen to. Now, a minute ago, I was telling you that I like the audio file as a learning tool. I don't like listening to the computer headphones when I'm taking a test because when you take a test, you have to understand something. The person that wrote those questions is trying to trick you.
Mm-hmm.
What good would a test be if everybody passed it? That test would have no value. If it was 100% passage rate, it's like, well, that test is no good. And I can tell you this, I've been working in the driver education business since 1978, one shape, form, or another. And there was a period of time where I was writing practice quizzes. And it's not that easy to write questions, because you've got to write the question in such a way so that at least somebody gets it wrong. So as an example, one of the ways that you would write a question, let's say that we want to ask a question about tire tread depth. So here's my question. Anybody know what the correct answer is here?
Yeah,
What's the correct answer?
I just learned it, but I'm not sure what it means. But it says 2
30 seconds.
slash
30 seconds.
Yeah.
2 32s, exactly, okay?
but I don't know what it means.
Well, that's the depth of the tread. So here's a tread depth indicator. I have to keep switching back and forth here. This is a tread depth. This is a tread. This is a tread depth indicator, a little testing tool. And you stick it there, push that thing down, and then you read this, and it tells you how deep that is. And this has to be a minimum of 2 30 seconds on the rear, 4 30 seconds on the front. Now, here's my problem. If I look at this question, the way it's written, minimum tread depth on tires other than front tires. If I miss 2 letters, 2 words, if for whatever reason I don't see other than, what am I going to answer? 4 30 seconds, because that's what the front tires are. Now, why didn't they just ask the question by saying, do it down here. Why didn't they just say the minimum on the rear tires? I can't even spell. Why didn't they ask the question that way? Because that's too easy. Okay? So that's my point. And that's why I don't like the headphones on the computer, because then I jump too quick. I really have to slow my brain down when I take a test and read the questions very carefully. And I'll tell you this, here's the question that messes me up the most. Which of the following is false? You mean the wrong answer is the right answer? Man, that doesn't even make any sense to me. How can the wrong answer be the right answer? You know, it would be my choice. Give me a quiz that says, how many feet away from the fire hydrant are you supposed to park? How many feet away from a stop sign are you supposed to park? What's the legal speed limit when your road's not posted in a rural area? What's the speed limit when not posted in an urban area? I can give you all those answers. I can write down the answer to those questions because I know that information. But when I take a test and they ask me which one of the following is false, man, does that screw me up. Okay? And that they're doing that on purpose. They're doing that on purpose because they got to get somebody to fail this test. Okay? So I don't really like the headphones, but go ahead and use them if you feel they're of an advantage to you. Now, here's one thing I don't like about the Minnesota computer test, and in Wisconsin, you can skip questions. So if you see a question on your Wisconsin computer and you're not real sure about it, skip it. You can come back to it later. You guys in Minnesota can't do that, which I think is a lousy deal, but that's the deal. You cannot skip questions on the Minnesota computer. The other thing I don't like about the computers, by the way, it scores you immediately if you get it right or wrong. So if you hit the wrong answer, it immediately, and again, my little brain, I'm like, and I'm distracted. Okay, I'm not focused on, trying to remember the correct answer. I'm counting in my head how many I got wrong. All right? So I don't like the computer one, and the Minnesota manual does say you can take it on paper or with a computer. That's exactly what it says verbatim in the state manual. You can take it on paper or with a computer. I would prefer the paper one, but let me warn you. The major exam stations in the Twin Cities, so downtown St. Paul, Lake Street, Minneapolis, Arden Hills, Eagan, Plymouth, Chaska, Hastings, Anoka, those larger exam stations, they have the computers. Now, what do you suppose they want you to do? Take it on a computer or on a piece of paper?
Computer.
They want you to take it on the computer.
First 2 times computer, after that you can do paper.
Okay, so it's a good thing that some people came here, because here's the deal. They don't have the authority to make you take it on a computer. And the reason they don't have the authority to do that, it's called the United States Constitution. And correct me if I'm mistaken, but somewhere in there it says all men, and it took 150 years to include women, all men should be treated equally under the law. Okay? The smaller exam stations don't have the computers. Stillwater's open 1 day a week. Red Wing's open 1 day a week. Lindstrom is open twice a month.
Yeah, where I'm at, Lemco is 1 day a week, like on the second.
Right. Yeah. So those smaller exam stations, and they don't have the computer. So you're going to take it on paper, right? So here's the question. He can take it on paper for the first time, but you can't? Whoever is instituting that policy is not familiar with the United States Constitution, are they? Okay? Now, if they have both, they have to give you equal access to both. If they only have one, then they can say you can only do the one they have, because they don't have but one. There you go. Okay? If you want to take this on paper and you want to go to one of the exam stations that has the computers, go in, ask for it on paper. They'll say no. And they'll tell you. And last I heard, the policy was you take it once, then you can take it on paper. But now apparently it's twice. Okay? Well, if you want to take it on paper, I would very politely say, I'd like it on paper. They'll say no. I promise you that. So then you say, because they'll give you a policy. You have to do it. So then I would say, may I speak to a supervisor about this, please? A supervisor will come out about 45 minutes later. They'll make you wait. Once the supervisor gets word somebody wants to talk to them, oh, okay, well, I'll be out in 45 minutes. And they'll go clean their desk or something just to make you wait, just on purpose. And then they'll come out and say, well, you have to take it on a computer. That's our policy. And I would say to them, now, as I understand it, there's 92 places in the state of Minnesota to take this test. And that's right on their website. There's 92 places to take this test, okay? And not all of them have the computer. And they know that, especially a supervisor. Supervisor knows that not all of these locations have the computers. And you simply explain to them that you're aware of that there are exam stations in the state that don't have the computers. And so then a person going there for the first time would be allowed to take it on paper. See, it's 93 locations now. They opened up a new one. So if somebody can take it on paper in Red Wing, if you're going to be treated equally under the law, you should be able to take it on paper in Eagan. Okay? Be polite, be professional, don't raise your voice, don't get hissy with them. Just be very polite and simply say, I simply need you to treat me equally under the law. That's all I'm asking. And at some point, they'll probably say, did you go to that damn interstate truck driving school? Okay, here's your paper one. Damn interstate people. Now, why don't they want to do that? Why don't they want to give it to you in paper?
More work.
It takes at least 45 seconds for them to correct your test. At least 45 seconds. See, to correct the computer one, a keystroke will do it. But the paper one, well, I gotta look at this. The Department of Public Safety and I don't get along real well, okay? I love the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. I love these guys. The feds, I love the feds. I love this federal agency. When's the last time you heard somebody say that? These guys are focused on safety. Their rules are transparent, they're clear. Do their rules allow people to make as much money as possible? No. The rules allow people to make a reasonable amount of living following rules that have the society's safety as its first and foremost concern. The minute I've operated this business with 0 collisions for 21 and a half years, not one insurance claim due to a collision in 21 and a half years. These companies can operate safely if they choose to, and I think that's a priority. Anyway, if you want to take it on paper, and now here's a couple advantages of the paper one, guys. You can skip questions. I like that. Nobody's scoring you right away. I like that. Here's the big advantage. Now, Debbie, in Wisconsin, since you can skip questions on the computer, any question that you're not real certain of, you can just keep skipping through, right? Now, the general knowledge has 50 questions, air brakes has 30, and combinations has 20 questions. On the Minnesota computer, you have to get 80% right. So on the 50 question general knowledge, that means 8 wrong, you'll pass, 9 wrong, you fail. So let's say you're having a bad day, and on the first 20 questions, you get the 9th one wrong. It shuts the computer off at that point. How many questions have you looked at?
20.
20. How many questions does Debbie get to look at the computer in Wisconsin?
50.
All 50. That ain't fair, is it? And the other advantage to the paper one, there's only 2 versions to the paper one. With the computer, they scramble up every time you take it, it's different. There's no way you'd get the same questions more than once on the computer thing because of the way it gets jumbled up. But the paper one, there's 2 versions. So if you've taken it twice, you've seen every question in the bank. All right? So you tell me, which way is the better way to approach this? Okay? See, don't you wish you would come here before you took it?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating to me that these clowns down at the Department of Public Safety, and you've seen what's going on in the news lately about them, right? About the delays, the testing delays. Have you seen that on CARE 11? If you haven't, Google CARE 11 and look it up. They're just a bunch of arrogant SOBs. Now, in Wisconsin, it's third-party testing. Okay? That's why we have a school in Wisconsin. We take all of our Minnesota residents over to Wisconsin, train them in Wisconsin, and test them in Wisconsin. If you were to call the state of Minnesota for a CDL exam right now, they would tell you about Christmas. Okay? Christmas. I can get people in next week in Wisconsin.
So if you live here, you can take your exam in Wisconsin.
There's a federal rule that allows a person that lives in one state to travel to another state. If they take training in that other state, then they're allowed to test in that other state. And that's why we formed a school over Wisconsin, so as to allow that. Okay? So that we can train our people over there, test them over there. And, you know, that first test, so in a school environment, the fact that a test would be 8 weeks out isn't terrible, because you got to go to school first. But here's the real criminal part of it. What if you fail the test? Now, in Wisconsin, I can get you back into the next week. Easy. That's how we're set up. We can always test people within a week. Sometimes, if you make a mistake on the driving portion, the examiner will require a 2-week wait minimum. But we can always meet that. Minnesota, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks before I get people tested again. And how fair is that? It's not. Okay. So, Minnesota Department of Public Safety, if you're listening, resign. Let's get somebody else in there that's got
I have a question.
enough courage to do the right thing. Yes.
The training is taking place in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And we were taking tests over there, the training and everything. Where is going to be the CDL from?
Whatever state you live in.
Yes, for that.
Yes.
So how
There's a federal rule that allows that. Okay. So what the federal rule says is that you can go to another state with your home state license, home state permit, test in that other state, then your home state has to recognize the results and grant you the license.
Is it going to go to like 4, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or not?
How long the training is?
No. To get license from here.
2 days. 2 business days. 2 business days. Yeah. It's just like your CDL is good in any state. Right? So you got a commercial license, you're driving in Wisconsin, you're valid, even though you got a Minnesota license. So it's the same federal oversight that allows this process. Okay? There's actually a federal rule that allows it. Right? Okay, back to my handout. What's next here? You must arrive at least an hour before the exam station closes. These guys actually lock the doors 45 minutes before closing time. Wouldn't that be nice to have a business? You lock the doors 45 minutes before you even close? Crazy. The only time limit to the test are their hours. So if you get there first thing in the morning, you stay there all day. All right? No time limit to the test. Again, location of exam stations, mindriveinfo.org. You can look up the location of the exam stations. Next paragraph, you can take one subject at a time if that works best for you. The exam station will hold on to your scores until you come back at a later date to pass the other tests you need. Now, for Class A, you need 3 tests, right? So just for the sake of discussion, first off, let's say you pass air brakes and combinations, but you failed the general knowledge. Well, when you come back, all you got to do is general knowledge. So they'll hold on to the fact that you've passed 2 tests. Okay? You could, if you're trying to separate things for clarity's sake in terms of trying to pass a test, you could go in, take one of the tests at 8:30, finish that, and then take a break for an hour or so. Come back later, take the next test, take another break, come back, take the next test. You do not have to do the testing of these 3 tests in one setting. You can break it up if you want to. Now, if you do anything like that, make sure that you have a copy of any test you have passed before you walk out of that building. If they tell you, no, that's okay, I'll hang on to your paperwork, check this out. Let's say you go in at 8:30 in the morning, you take a general knowledge test, you pass it. So at 9:15, you go up the counter, okay, I passed that, I'm moving back. And they say, okay, well, we'll hang on to your paperwork, that's okay, I got it right here. Just come on back when you want. So you go out in the parking lot, you pick up the manual, and you start reading the air brakes, right? Well, what you don't know is the clerk that's handling your paperwork just got a call from their daycare center. The kid is sick. Where are they going? They're out the door. They're gone, okay? You walk back in 15 minutes later, yeah, I passed my general knowledge, I'm here to do my air brakes now. Oh, well, we don't have anything. Well, there was this lady, I don't see her now, but she's gone. Oh, must have been Martha. Her kid got sick, she left. But boy, I don't see where she put your paperwork. Well, you want to come back tomorrow? No, I don't want to come back tomorrow. I passed the thing an hour ago. Well, since you passed it once, I guess you can pass it again. Go take the test. That's their attitude. These people are terrible, okay? Now, be very careful with these documents you're getting from the state of Minnesota. They are incompetent there. When you get your license, read it over carefully, front and back. Back is where they put the restrictions. We have customers getting restrictions that they're not supposed to have. One of our customers went 1.5 years driving truck and got pulled over in a normal inspection one day over Wisconsin. And the trooper looks at his license and says, son, you can't drive this truck. Excuse me? Look right here, son. It says no air brakes. You're not allowed to drive a truck with air brakes. That truck's got air brakes. Officer, I took my test with air brakes. No, I don't care. It says right here, no air brakes. Officer, I've been driving this truck for 1.5 years. Well, you've been driving illegal for 1.5 years. Better call your boss, tell him to come and get it, because you ain't driving it. Get this story. We had a customer, goes to get his permit, passes the test, goes up to the counter. He's got all his paperwork, his certified birth certificate, all that stuff. Oh, and by the way, they misspelled the city on my license here. Edina, they misspelled it, right? So the clerk says, oh, we gotta fix that, we gotta fix that. Oh, here, fill out this. Yep, fill that, sign that. Okay. All right, give me, stamps his license void, hands him a paper application for a new license, and says, okay, well, there you go. Well, what about the permit? Oh, you can't get the permit today. Excuse me? No, you have to wait until you get a new license in the mail before we can give you the permit. Are you bleeping kidding me? He had to wait 8 weeks for this to show up before they let him get his permit. Okay? So my point is, read these things, both sides, make sure everything's correct right from the get-go. We have people getting B's when they took A tests, people getting A's when they took B tests, people getting restrictions on automatics when they use manuals, people getting no restriction when they use automatics, all kinds of mistakes on these licenses, okay? Keep the documents they give you, because if you took a test Class A and they give you a Class B license, you go back out there with the piece of paper and say, hey, you guys messed up. Here's the piece of paper. Here's the license. Then they'll fix it. If you don't have the piece of paper, now you got a problem. Let me tell you this story. One of our students went to Egan a couple years ago, June 21st, 12:30 in the afternoon, took his test, passed it. Didn't have a certified birth certificate with him. Went to Chaska the next day, paid for, applied for his license. A month later, mid-July, he gets a letter from the state of Minnesota that says, you applied for a Class A license, there's no record of your road test. You got to take and pass a road test before you can get a Class A license. Go take a road test. He goes over to Chaska. Look at this letter. Yep, no road test. I took a road test at Egan a month ago, 12:30 in the afternoon on the 21st. We'll go to Egan then. She drives to Egan. Look at this letter. Yep, you didn't take a road test. Yes, I did. I was here last month on the 21st at 12:30 and I took a road test. Nope. He drives over here. Guys, look at this letter. They won't give me my license. We're like, did you keep the paperwork? No. Was I supposed to? Yeah. Well, can you help me? So here's what's interesting. Back in 2011, I started putting dash cameras in my trucks. I didn't ask the state of Minnesota permission. I don't ask a government agency if it's okay with them if I exercise my constitutional rights, okay? These are public officials performing official duties in the public. So I put the cameras in the trucks. Oh boy, did they get mad at me. They actually took steps to shut me down, put me out of business. Good news is there's this thing called due process, and I fought back. Not only did they not shut me down, I got a judge to order them to leave them cameras on. So I have video in cab of this conversation between this examiner and this young man. Congratulations, you passed your test. Here's a couple of things you got to work on. Okay, thank you. Okay, now here's your paperwork. You can go get your license. Oh, can I get the license now? Sure, you can go in right now and get the license. Do I need a certified birth certificate with me? Yeah, you need that. Well, I don't have that with me now. Well, you can do it later then. Well, I live up by Chaska. Can I go to Chaska? Sure, go to Chaska. Got this whole conversation on video, right? So, didn't take my training director but about 10 minutes to look this up. And then what I had the student do is I had him video it. We played it on the monitor, and I had him video it with his phone. I says, go out to Egan and show it to him. He drives out to Egan. I got video proof I passed the test. They don't care. Chaska's the one that screwed this up. Go to Chaska. He drives to Chaska. I got video proof I passed this test. Dude, Egan is the one that messed this up. Go back to Egan. He's back at Egan for the third time same day. Would you be mad by now?
Oh, yeah.
And get this. He goes in there. I got video proof I passed this test. We don't care. You're not in the computer. We don't care. He calls me from there. I said, okay, find out who the supervisor is. He comes back and says, it's Jessica. And I says, okay, tell Jessica two things. Tell her that when we hang up, I'm calling my attorney. His name is Paul Applebaum. And as soon as I can get a hold of him, he'll be calling her. So she can expect a call from my attorney. Secondly, I'm going to call my friends at KSTP Television. I advertise with KSTP. I got a little bit of an in there. And I'm hoping that I can get their investigative news team to come out and interview you and have you show KSTP the video that proves that you passed this test and the fact that they're stonewalling you. Tell her that and let me know. He calls me back 5 minutes later. Oh, it's taken care of now. Should I have had to do that?
No.
You know, if someone comes in here and says, hey, I paid cash for something, and I say, hey, I got no record of it, and he comes in with a receipt, guess what I do? I give him that cash, right? Okay? So these people are terrible. Pay attention to this thing. This is a very valuable document. This is how you get on and off airplanes in this country, right? And incidentally, going forward, you know, you need to either a real ID or enhanced ID in order to get on an airplane in the future. Passport will work also. All right. So document, document, document. Now let's talk about the last sentence on this handout. And this is, what I'm about to talk to you about is the most important thing I have to say to you today. This is what we're going to talk about is worth all of your time here today. When you get a permit, and then later a license, you have to fill out what's called a CDL medical self-certification form. Turn to the back page of your handout. Just flip it to the very back. This is a copy of the CDL medical self-certification form, okay? Now, notice there are 4 categories there. And those 4 categories give you the option of being interstate or intrastate. Who would be an intrastate driver? Those are people that are under age 18 or people that can't pass a federal level DOT but can pass a state level DOT physical. The threshold for passing that test is higher on the interstate side than it is on the intrastate side. Intrastate means you're staying within the boundaries of a state. And again, the threshold is different. As an example, to pass the interstate vision test, you have to see 20/40 with both eyes, correction allowed. But on the intrastate level, 20/40 with one eye. So a person with poor vision in one eye can't drive interstate, but they can drive intrastate. Okay, so that's why we have those 2 options. Then the other thing you'll notice is you have the option of either being non-exempt, which means required, or exempt from having the DOT health card. Who's exempt from having a DOT health card? Some government jobs don't require it, but also personal use. What if you're getting your license just for your own personal use? Let's say, for the sake of discussion, that I go out and buy a lottery ticket after class and I win. Well, by the end of the week, especially by sometime on Saturday, my wife would expect the purchase of a hobby farm complete with horses. And next week, she would expect the purchase of a truck and a 4-horse trailer so she can take her horse, 3 of her friends, and their horses and go trail riding in different places. Now, a truck to haul those 4 horses will be a Class A rig. The weight classification that it would take to do that properly, that would be a Class A vehicle. So she'd have to come here. I'll still be here, by the way. She'd have to come here in order to take her training and get her license, but she does not need a medical. She's not operating commercially. She doesn't need to follow hours of service regulations. The vehicle doesn't need to be inspected, etc. However, she'd have to be very careful. She can't sell hay. She can't even charge her friends gas money because now she's taking money and revenue in for the use of this truck. So she has to be very careful about that. That being said, she doesn't need a commercial license. You can use a commercial vehicle for hobbies like that, for going to horse shows, for going to amateur car racing events. I do that. Going to car shows, you know, if you're going back to the 50s or whatever those shows are, you could have a great big huge over-the-road rig and you don't need a health card. As long as you're not generating money with it, not creating income with it, that's personal use, so therefore you're exempt. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to your attention at this point, you don't need a medical to get the permit. Some examiners, some of the people that work for the state of Minnesota will tell you, no, you gotta have that health card. No, I don't. Here's my form. Well, if you don't have the health card, what are you doing this for? You know what I would say to that person? None of your business. Here's my form. The form I'm giving you right now, you can use that one. Just check exempt, sign it, and hand it to them. Okay? Now, if you're going to get paid to drive a truck, now you need a medical card, right? And incidentally, if you take training from us, you need a medical card too. But, so you're going to go get a job. You don't have a medical card yet. So you go in, I'm here to apply for this job on Craigslist. Here's my license. Well, where's your medical? Oh, I don't have that. Well, there's a clinic right down the road. Go down there. They'll give you the physical. An hour and a half later, 60, 70, 80, 90 bucks later, you're, okay, I got the health card here now. It's that quick. It's a very, it's not much of a test, the physical. Okay, they check your blood pressure, your pulse, your vision, make sure you can hear. Okay, pretty basic thing. You do provide a urine sample where they're checking for high blood sugar and also blood in your urine. But that's it. That's all they're checking. Okay, pretty simple process. Pardon?
I got one.
Yep. Anybody else already have the health card? Okay. So you don't need the health card. Now in Wisconsin, they're even more sticklers about it. Okay.
I've heard that.
And the thing of it is, here's the form, and the form allows you to be exempt. If the feds allow you to be exempt, don't tell me the state won't allow you to be exempt. So fill out the form, check it, hand it to them. I ain't gonna have it. No, I don't. No, I don't. Here, okay? You can get it later. But here's the other part of this story that's really important that you understand, okay? When you get your health card, you do have to submit it to the state. And notice what this form says when it talks about the first category here, non-exempt. It says right there, current medical examiner certificate from certified medical examiner must be submitted. So the first thing to understand is when you get your health card, you have to go to somebody that's registered with the feds to provide that. You can't go to just anybody. Now this is a big change from years ago. This goes back maybe 5 years. So 5 years ago and longer back, all you need to do is have a health card in your wallet. A signed health card in your wallet and you were good. The truck stops sold blank ones for $4. How hard was it to have a health card? $4 and a friend with lousy penmanship. Fraudulent? Yes. Were people getting caught? Sometimes, but not regularly. Okay? So that's why the feds changed this and forced people to go to a registered provider. You can only go to a registered provider for this. They're all over the place. They put your name in a federal database when you go there. Then what you have to do is that you have to send this into the state with a copy of the medical, right? And that way they can double check to make sure you went to a legitimate healthcare provider to get this physical. Now the other thing about this equation that's really important that you understand is that once you register with the state, now the state knows your status. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in my license, and we're going to look at the public information here that the state has on me. So I'm going to scoot it up so my driver's license number is not showing. Okay, so this is me, right? So I have a Class A license. Here, I got to show this to the Wisconsin people. So I have a Class A license. My Class D, I'm valid, license, good standing. My commercial, I'm valid, license, good standing. Here's my endorsements, motorcycle, tanker, passenger. I have no restrictions. Now, here's my medical, okay? My medical is certified. I'm Category 1, non-exempt, interstate. But here's the real kicker, okay? Here is the expiration date of my medical. All right? Now, incidentally, my medical is only good for 1 year at a time. If you're healthy, it'll be good for 2 years at a time. I'm taking high blood pressure medication. I can't imagine why I would have high blood pressure. So my medical is only good for a year. Okay? So my medical expires on May 20th. 60 days before the expiration of my medical, the state is going to send me a letter. I get them every year, so I can cite this to you verbatim from memory. Dear William, this letter is sent to you as a courtesy by Driver and Vehicle Services Division. Your medical self-certification is going to expire on the 20th of May. If you wish to maintain your CDL privileges, please resubmit the new medical self-certification form by the 20th of May. Now here's the kicker, people. If I do not renew by the 20th of May, what happens to my CDL? I lose it. They take my CDL away. Now, if I go back 2 years later, because look at this, my expiration date on my license is 2022. So if I go in late June of 2022 and say, yeah, I'm here, I want to renew my license, they're going to look me up in the computer and they're going to say, well, Mr. Collins, you don't have a Class A anymore. And I'm going to say, excuse me? Says Class A right there. Well, you used to have a Class A. Okay, well, I haven't had any tickets or accidents, so what's the deal here? Why is it that you're saying I don't have a Class A? Well, it looks like your medical expired back in 2020 and you didn't renew it. So it's a health card thing? Yeah, that's what the deal is. Well, I got a brand new one right here. We good? Well, Mr. Collins, you can go in the room there and take your permit test. And if you pass it, we'll give you a permit. And remember, you'll have to wait 14 days, and then you can take your road test, and if you pass that, you can get your CDL back. We have people in class right now, currently enrolled in this program right here, that went to this school in the past. They lost their CDL because they didn't renew this thing, okay? Now, it's that simple. Just renew this. Now, let me bring this to the table. I was telling you that you don't need a medical if you're not driving truck, right? Right? So let's say, for the sake of discussion, that you go through this process, you get your license. You get your medical, it's good for 2 years. You submit to that to the state. You drive for a year, and then something else comes up, and now you're not driving truck. Okay, cool. So a year after that, you get the letter. Your medical's going to expire. And you say to yourself, well, I don't need a new medical. Take this form, check exempt, and fax it in. You get to keep your CDL forever. You can go into the exempt status anytime you need to, which will allow you to keep your CDL indefinitely, as long as you keep paying for it on renewal. And then if you need to go back to work, all you got to do is go in, take a physical, send this back in with the physical now, and you're recertified as required, and you're good to go. Simple? So don't forget to send this form in when you get that notice of expiration. With or without the medical, exempt or non-exempt, send this thing in to make sure that you maintain a valid status of your CDL, okay? I feel so badly for these people. They come in here and they are spending thousands of dollars with us. And they already did it once. We have people that are actually driving truck for a living that have had their license taken away from them, and they didn't realize it. They had no idea. And they're still out there driving truck. And they don't have a license to drive it, and they're driving it. Because they forgot to send this form in, okay? Send the form in. All right. Now let's talk about how to pass the test, okay? 6 hours of reading. Just the reading, 6 hours. So if you're really going to study this, how long is that going to take? 12 hours? How many of you are going to invest 12 hours in that? So let me give you a shortcut, okay? There's a shortcut. Take this book, turn to page 2-8. It's not numbered 1 through 500. You got to look down here on the bottom of the page. Go to 2-8. In the left-hand column of page 2-8, you see that test your knowledge box? Okay? Those are the questions on the test, people. Those are the questions on the test. They did that on purpose. This manual is written by the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, and they did that on purpose to help people study for this test. Okay? What I'm suggesting you do is you take this manual, you find these test your knowledge boxes in here, and you go find the correct answer to those questions in the section immediately preceding it, highlight that information. Now you have the perfect study guide. That way you can weed through all the information that's not important and that will not show up on the test. Excuse me. Again, they did this on purpose. They created these test your knowledge boxes on purpose to help people pass the test. This testing started in the late 1980s. I was licensed in 1975. When I got my license in 1975, I did not have to take a written test. There was a law passed on the federal level in 1984 that required this knowledge testing. So all of us who had a license, when we went to renew, we had to take a written test for the first time. And there were a lot of drivers that were struggling with that, experienced drivers, and they couldn't pass the damn written test. Can you imagine how mad they were? I've been driving truck 25 years. Now you can tell me some bureaucrats can tell me I can't drive a damn truck because I can't pass no written test. Okay? So the feds went to AMBA, the authors of the manual. These are also the people that set up the test, both written and the road test. And they said, the Fed said to AMBA, can you come up with a way to help people? So that's where these test your knowledge boxes came from, okay? And I'm telling you, this is dead accurate. If you learn the correct answers for these test your knowledge questions, you will pass your test. So let's go over a few of them. The first one is very obvious. What's the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection?
Safety.
Safety. The second one is a little problematic. The second question here. What things should you check during a trip? Wow. Huh?
Load,
The load?
Tires.
Tires?
Brakes.
Brakes? That all makes... Huh?
Lights.
Lights?
Fluids.
Fluids?
Or airlines.
Airlines? That all makes sense to me. Let's find the correct answer, though. And let's find the correct answer by typing in during a trip in the search box here. And here's the correct answer. During a trip, for safety, you should watch gauges for signs of trouble or use your senses to check for problems. Look, listen, smell. Okay? So this is back on page 2 too, but let me put this on the screen for those of you in South St. Paul here. Or excuse me, Hudson. So that's the correct answer. Okay? See, this question was so vague and ambiguous, there's no way you could figure out the correct answer. Now, if they had asked the question in the following manner, during a trip, when you're actually driving down the road at 60 miles an hour, what should you check? Well, now you can figure out where they're going with that, right? But remember I told you that everything on the test is in the manual? So there is a definite connection between the question and the information, and it's in the manual. And so if you were to get mad at them for that question, that's a vague question, they'll go back in the manual and say, well, look, it says it right there. See? It says right there in the manual. During the trip, you should. Tell you right there. There's the correct answer. You didn't study the manual. Okay? So the correct information is right in the manual. So you want to find that information out of the manual so that you can get those answers. Okay? All right. Let's go to the next question. Name some key steering system parts. Well, if you go back up to page 2.2 in the manual, you'll find a diagram that shows you the steering system parts. Get up here a little ways. Almost there. Okay, I missed them. Hang on. Here they are. I don't know why I missed it. But here's your steering system part. See, they got this diagram there. Okay? So everything in that diagram that's identified is fair game as a steering system part. So what you do is you highlight those parts. Okay? The next question is, name some suspension system defects. Well, they're on that same page right here. There's the steering. But here's the suspension system defects. Now, there's a lot of them. Spring hangers that allow movement, cracked or broken spring hangers, missing or broken leafs in any leaf spring. If 1/4 or more are missing, put the vehicle out of service. Any defect can be dangerous. The defects include broken leaves in a multi-leaf spring or leaves that have shifted, leaking shock absorbers, torque rod, torque arm, U-bolt spring hangers, or other axle positioning parts that are cracked, damaged, or missing. So those are suspension system defects. And that's one of the questions. All right, next question on page 2-8. What 3 kinds of emergency equipment must you have? Okay, reflective triangles, and you could substitute flares for that, but either one.
Fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguisher, so reflective triangles, fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher, incidentally, A 5 VC is the minimum size and type, securely attached and fully charged. What's the third thing?
Jacket?
No.
Fuse.
Electrical fuses. Very good. You've read the manual. Now, stop and think about this for a second. I can understand why triangles are emergency equipment. I can understand why fire extinguishers are emergency equipment. But what good are spare electrical fuses? I mean, any of you know anything about the electrical components on a motor vehicle? If a fuse pops and you put in a new one, then what? It'll probably pop right away again because there's some sort of malfunction that caused the fuse to pop. What good does it do to carry spare fuses? I don't know. That makes no sense to me. Now, if they said you got to carry spare fuses, electrical wire, connectors, shrink wrap, ohm meter, test light, electrical tape, if they made me carry a whole kit, I could understand that. But just the fuse? That makes no sense to me. People, I own 22 commercial vehicles. I have spare fuses in every single one of them. I have no idea if they fit. I have no idea. I don't care. The rule says I have to have spare fuses. I have them. And I can't tell you the last time I popped a fuse in a truck. Honest to God, I can't even tell you. Now, I've got lots of lights that didn't work, but it was never a fuse problem. I mean, the fuse problem is so rare, just isn't a problem. But nevertheless, that's what you're required to do, so that's what you do, okay? All right, number 6, what's the minimum tread depth for front tires? 430 seconds. Other tires?
230 seconds.
230 seconds. Number 7, name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during the walk-around inspection. And it's going to be lights, okay? Number 8, what should wheel bearing seals be checked for? Leaks, very good. Number 9, how many red reflective triangles should you carry? 3. Number 10, how do you test hydraulic brakes for leaks?
Hit it 5 times or 3 times for 5 seconds?
Yes, yes. Pump 3 times and hold the brake pedal for 5 seconds. If the pedal goes down during that 5-second hold, then there's a leak. If it stays steady, you're good. Pump 3 times, hold for 5 seconds. But you got to remember that formula. Okay? And so it's going to be a multiple choice question. They may say pump 5 times, hold for 3 seconds. Pump 3 times, hold for 5 seconds. Pump 6 times, hold for 3. You got to know what the right formula is. You got to know that. It's in the manual. Number 11, why put the starter switch key in your pocket during the pre-trip inspection? So as to make sure nobody starts the truck up while you were underneath it. Okay? 2-10 is the next test your knowledge section on the right-hand side there. Number 1, why should you back towards the driver's side?
So they can see you.
So you can see better. Okay, so whenever you have the option, you back towards the driver's side. Second question, if stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling back? The manual tells you to use the parking brake, or if you're driving a Class A vehicle that has a trailer brake lever on the dashboard, use that. Personally, I don't do any of that. These manual transmissions these days, I should put it this way, the motors in these trucks these days have so much torque and power, they're not going to roll back on you. You're not driving a 1972 Pinto. It's not going to buck, snort, and die on you. Okay? It's a diesel. It's got plenty of torque. All you have to do is let the clutch out smooth, release the foot brake, and off you go. Number 3, when backing, why is it important to use a helper? And the key 2 words that will find the correct answer for you is to avoid blind spots. That's what the helper does for you, avoid blind spots. Number 4, what's the most important hand signal that you and the helper should agree on? Stop. Bonus question. If you are using a helper, I call him a spotter. If you are using a helper back there while you're backing up, if you lose sight of him, what should you do? Stop, get out, and go find him. Okay? Number 5. Number 5. What are the 2 special conditions where you should downshift?
Downhill
Downhill,
and wet when it's raining. It's
curves. Downhill and curves. Okay? Number 6. When should you downshift automatic transmissions? Prior to going down a hill. Now, keep in mind, this manual was written in the middle 1980s. And a lot of technology has changed over the years. This manual does not reflect those changes. Automatic transmissions, you do not need to manually downshift them. They will do it automatically. You do have to slow down prior to going down a hill. Okay? But I promise you something. The transmission will downshift itself as you slow down. Okay? I had a customer here a while back says, well, the truck we have doesn't do that. Well, it's broke then, okay? Because they're supposed to do that. Which is a segue to the next question. When should you downshift? Excuse me. The next question, number 7. Retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. True or false? Well, first of all, what's a retarder?
Jake brake.
That's your engine brake, okay? Be called engine brake, engine retarder, or Jake brake. That's all the same thing. Now, the engine brake was invented by a Cummins motor engineer back in 1960. And the reason for the invention of the engine brake is because the drum brakes on these big trucks are problematic going down a steep grade with a heavy load. You can easily lose your brakes going down a steep grade with a heavy load. Lose your brakes. You lose your brakes because overuse will cause overheating, which causes the fading and the failing of the brakes. Now, what's interesting is disc brakes have been around for at least a dozen years in our industry. Very few trucks and even fewer trailers are using disc brakes. They're available. You can get them. The high-end trucks, Peterbilts and Kenworths, are coming with disc brakes. Sometimes only on the front. I have one truck. I have a Peterbilt, a 2013 Peterbilt, with disc brakes in the front. It's the only truck I've got with any disc brakes on it, okay? If I were in a position to replace all my trucks with new trucks, I would spec them out with disc brakes. It's a $500 upgrade per wheel. Disc brakes are much more reliable. They always stay in proper adjustment without any problems. And they work a whole bunch better going down a hill. They work a whole bunch better when the roads are wet. But this industry is kind of old school. My granddaddy walked to school, I walked to school, you're going to walk to school. I don't care if you're on a school bus, you can walk just like the rest of the family. You know, it's that old school mentality of, that's the way we've been doing it for 50 years, why change? Okay? So that's why we still got these drum brakes on these trucks. And again, when you're going down a steep downgrade, if you use the brake too much, the brakes will overheat and fail. And this Cummins engineer figured out how to, you know, a combustion engine propels you down the road. There's literally an explosion inside this motor when these pistons compress the air and fuel and kabam and it powers you down the road. Well, the Cummins engineer figured out how to reverse that. And so what he figured out was stop giving the motor fuel, and instead of opening the exhaust valves to allow the piston to push exhaust out into the exhaust system, how about we close those exhaust valves, and now the piston can't push it out. So that causes a braking effect then on the rear wheels. So that's an engine brake, engine retarder. The reason it's called a Jake brake, Cummins licensed it in 1961 to a company called the Jacobs Company. And that company licensed that technology to the rest of the engine manufacturers, Detroit and Caterpillar and all them guys, okay? So that's where the nickname Jake brake comes from. Now, that engine brake is working on your drive wheels, the wheels that are connected to the drive shaft, the differential, transmission, okay? The drive wheels. So our question was, engine retarders keep you from skidding when the road is slippery. Well, the exact opposite would be true. An engine brake when the road is slippery will cause the vehicle to skid. How many of you, when you were younger, when it snowed, you went out and found yourself a nice big parking lot? And what'd you do? I got at least 2 recipients here, okay? What'd you do? Pulled on the old emergency brake, right? What'd the car do? Woo! Okay? So braking the rear wheels when it's slippery will cause a skid. So you wouldn't want to use an engine brake when it's slippery. The manual is going to tell you, do not use your engine brake when the roads are wet, icy, or snow covered. Well, I'm going to tell you this. If it's raining and you're loaded, you've got a heavy load, so the engine brake is applicable, reasonable to use, go ahead. You're not going to have any problems with traction just because it's wet, especially with a heavily loaded rig. You're going to have a ton of traction when you're loaded with cargo, okay? So go ahead and use your engine brake if it's raining. Ignore that. The manual says that you shouldn't use the engine brake when it's icy. Do you know where me and my truck are when the roads are icy? Parked. A bit ago, I told you how we have a perfect safety record over 21 years, right? How do you suppose I accomplished that? Because I have policies and procedures in place to keep the truck safe. When it snows around here, I tell all my staff, okay, you can go out in the trucks, but stay in the flat, no hills. No hills, you stay on a flat surface. And the minute it starts to do freezing drizzle, them trucks get parked. Heck, if there's freezing drizzle, it's not even safe to get in and out of the dang truck, is it? How many of you have walked across an icy parking lot and regretted it for about the next 6 days, right? Okay? I mean, those kind of falls and you know, spraining muscles that you didn't even know you had. Right. So incidentally, you can get these little steady grippy things for your feet, you know, for your shoes. Those are really helpful there. Snow, are we talking about, you know, if it snows next week, the ground's going to be so warm, it won't stick, right? But if it's a January snowstorm, 15 below zero and it's snowing, it's slippery all get out, okay? So you guys park your truck when it does that. I'll be in Phoenix, so I won't have to worry about it. So anyway, the answer to the question is false. Retarders will actually cause a skid rather than prevent it. Number 8, what are the 2 ways to know when to shift? Road speed and engine speed is what the manual will tell you. Let's go to the next one here, test your knowledge. So what page is this? This is 2-16. That's where the next one is here. Number 1, how far ahead does the manual say you should look? Anybody know? First time I took this, saw this question on a test, I got it wrong. Why? Because I always choose the furthest one, because that's what I'm doing. I'm always looking as far as I can down the road.
12 to 15 seconds.
Exactly, 12 to 15 seconds. You just look it up?
No.
Okay. Thought maybe you were looking it up. But 12 to 15 seconds is the correct answer, because that's what's in the manual.
A quarter mile.
Well, that depends upon your speed.
Yeah.
They're going to ask you in terms of seconds, because that's what's in the manual. Okay? Number 2, what are the 2 main things to look for ahead? Traffic and road conditions. Number 3, what's the most important way to see the sides and rear of your vehicle? Mirrors. Number 4, what does communicating mean in safe driving? Signaling. Okay?
What is that?
What does communicating mean? Using your signals.
Okay.
Turn signals. Yep. Let's find the next one. All right, so now where are we? We're on page what? 2-22.
Aren't there other
It has more
questions on
questions,
that
like
one?
10 questions.
On which one?
On,
Same page.
2-16, there's, question 5 through 10 up at the top of the page.
216. Did I miss some? Oh, absolutely. You're right. Number 5, where should your reflectors be placed when stopped on a divided highway? Divided. Anybody know?
10.
Yep.
100, 200.
Yep. 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet.
And what's this divided highway? I still
It's a
don't-
freeway.
Okay.
A divided highway means that there's a barrier between the two directions of travel. Okay. Number 6. What 3 things add up to total stopping distance?
Speed.
No.
Distance, reaction distance, and braking distance.
Yes.
Exactly.
I looked it up.
There you go. Perception distance, reaction distance, and stopping distance. Okay. Number 7. If you go twice as fast, will your stopping distance increase by 2 or 4 times?
4 times.
4 times. Number 8. Empty trucks have best braking. True or false?
True.
True.
False. I got that wrong the first time I took it too. Okay? See, trucks are designed to haul weight. When they're not hauling weight, they're not operating within their design configuration. So the worst thing in terms of traction that you could possibly drive would be what we call bobtail, which is this. Okay, this is a bobtail configuration, no trailer. This thing is tough to handle even when it's raining, because you got so many tires back here and you don't have enough weight to give them traction. So the back of the truck wants to slide around when you're empty and running like this. Okay, I would never drive this in the snow. You wouldn't be able to get out of your own way with a bobtail configuration. Okay. When you load the truck up, now there's weight on all the wheels, giving them the traction they need to actually stop you. And that's another interesting thing I should point out, by the way. Okay, on your car, which one of your brakes wears out the soonest?
Front.
Front. Which one on one of these? This axle right here. Why? Because that's where the majority of the weight is. So when you hit the brakes, there's more weight on this axle than there is on this axle. So this is the most important braking axle on a tractor-trailer configuration. I didn't know that until a mechanic taught me that years ago. Okay, that kind of blew my mind. All right. And what is hydroplaning? I don't have to explain that to y'all, right? Riding up on the thin layer of water. And I don't need to explain what black ice is to y'all, right? If this was Dallas, Texas truck driving school, I have to explain it to you. But you're all Minnesotans, right?
Yeah.
So for sure, you know what black ice is. Okay. All right, let's do this for the last couple of minutes here. Let's go to cdltest.co and take a look at some of the quiz questions on cdltest.co. And you can get to that incidentally through our website if you want. Just go to our website, click on resources, down here, practice permit test. So this is cdltest.co. They recently revised this, by the way, if you've taken, well, now there it is. And what I'm going to do here, first of all, let me switch this for our Wisconsin people so they can see it. I'm going to go down here and do Class A test number 1, 115 questions, okay? Number 1, which of the following are ways to tell if you're about to fall asleep? Your eyes close or go out of focus by themselves. You have trouble keeping your head up. You start drifting between lanes. You have to keep jerking the truck back in your lane. All the above or none of the above? Well, that's pretty simple. That's all of the above, okay? What is the minimum number of tie downs for any flatbed load?
1 per 10 feet.
Okay, what's the minimum number?
2 for
Two.
full load, yeah.
2. 2 would be the minimum number, okay? What does communicating in safe driving mean?
Signal.
Using your signals, okay? So that would be the second one. Now, we just had that question, didn't we?
Yeah. This one
So what that's indicative of how accurate this practice test is relative to the Minnesota manual. Question number 4, the tractor protection valve is controlled by the trailer air supply control valve in the cab. True or false? True.
What does it mean?
Well, okay, so what does it mean? That's a really good question. You release your trailer brakes. Oops. You release your trailer brakes by pushing this in. Okay? So you push this in, and what that does is that air goes into the spring brakes in your trailer to release them. So now there's air in this line. Okay? If that air line breaks, two things happen. One, the brakes lock up on the trailer because there's no air holding the spring brakes in the release position. The other thing that happens is this pops out and stops any further air from going out of the system and depleting your air supply. So that's why they call it a tractor protection valve. It's used when you have an air brake trailer, and it's used to stop the airflow if that line breaks. So it protects you in that regard. So that's why they call it the tractor protection valve. Okay? All right. Number 5 here. The air pressure should not drop more than what in 1 minute during a static leakage test. Now, first off, what's a static leakage test? Here's what it is, and this is important for those of you who got to take the permit test. That means your foot is off the brake. Your foot is off the brake. Okay? So, what would be the correct answer? 2 psi for single, 3 for combination, 5 for combination 3 or more, or 3, 4, and 5, 3, 4, and 6, or 4, 5, and 6? What's the correct answer?
3, 4, and 6. 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5 is the correct answer if the brake is applied. This is static. Brake is not applied. So it's the first one, 2, 3, and 5. So it's really important that you know that when you look at a question about how much air you can lose in a minute, you have to look at that question very carefully and figure out, are they talking about with my foot on the brake or off the brake? Because there's a 1 pound difference between those two things. Okay? So if your foot's on the brake, it's 1 pound more. If your foot's off the brake, it's 1 pound less. And then there's a difference between Class A and Class B, with the A being 1 pound more, B being 1 pound less, right? And when you take the test, the way you figure out whether you're asking you about A or B is straight truck is a B, combination is an A. Okay? On the road test, you'll do the applied foot on the brake test, which is 3 pounds for a B, 4 pounds for an A. But on the permit test, they could ask you either way. They could even ask you both ways. They could throw that at you twice during the test. They could ask you static, which is off the brake, or applied, foot on the brake. All right? 2 and 3 with your foot off, 3 and 4 with your foot on. Any questions on that? All right. Put this back on the screen for people. Question number 6, what 2 things are most important in preventing a rollover? Evenly loaded trailer, properly inflated tires, keeping the cargo as close to the ground as possible, driving slowly around turns, weight and length of the vehicle, keeping the cargo center of gravity as high as possible, drive slowly around turns, or none of the above. What's the correct answer? It's the second one, okay? Keeping the cargo low. If the cargo was high, it would be too tippy, and then driving slowly around the turns. Now, let me show you something else here. Let's say you don't know the correct answer. You get a question like this. So experiment with it. Let's try the first one. Sorry, wrong answer, it says. Use the back button. Let's try this one. Sorry, wrong answer. Use the back button. Weight and length. Oh, sorry, wrong answer. Use the back button. So now you find the correct answer, okay? So after you found the correct answer, here's a suggestion I have for you. Use the back button. Go back to the correct answer so you have it on the screen. And then do this. Take a picture of it. Why?
So you can test yourself.
Study guide. Now you have in your phone the questions that you found confusing on this practice test. What a good way to study in your car before you walk in and take the test.
Now, could you do that at the exam?
No. No.
What do you do without getting caught?
There were some people that actually went to jail out east. They were doing some really high-tech cheating. They were using Bluetooth, and apparently people were wearing glasses, and you know, there was a camera in it, and somebody someplace else was looking at the questions, and then on the frame of the glasses was an earpiece, and they were telling the correct answer. Okay? And they caught him and they went to jail. Okay? You know, and that technology's there. I mean, that's, especially with a test that's multiple choice like this, you could have it pulsate. In other words, pulse once for A, pulse twice for B, pulse 3 times for C. Be pretty simple to do, wouldn't it? Okay? Just wear your little glasses with your little camera in it. Okay. So no, you can't dig the cell phone out when you take your test. What are the 4 basic types of retarders? Well, the manual is going to tell you the last one: exhaust, engine, hydraulic, and electric. They're all exhaust. They're all engine. Electric, they all have an electric switch to them, every single one of them. Hydraulic, I don't even know how the hydraulics fit into it. But that's going to be the correct answer, because that's what the manual says. ABS braking systems are good because they help prevent power and turning skids. True or false? False. They prevent braking skids, not power and turning. You know, and here again, you got to really read the question through. ABS prevents skids. If you don't really read it, you'll get the wrong answer. So you got to read the questions. Take your time. When you look at Snoopy, when using your fire extinguisher, you should get as close as possible to the fire. True or false? False. You're a truck driver. If this was a fireman quiz, it would be true. But you're a truck driver, so you don't get close. So why would you use it then? I don't know. The distance traveled from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot is actually pushing the brake pedal is called what? That's reaction distance. The act of operating a motor vehicle in a selfish, bold, or pushy manner without regard to rights or safety of the other best describes what? Aggressive driving. The road rage is described as driving with an intent to harm. And aggressive driving is defined in the manual as selfish, bold, or pushy. Okay. Again, all this stuff is right out of the manual. What can be done to help prevent oil and water from building up in the air tanks?
Drain.
Well, okay, so here's our potential answers. Avoid using the brakes in humid weather. Perform an air brake pump down test 3 times a day. Number 3, keep light pressure on the brakes when driving through water. 4th one is use an alcohol evaporator. All the above or none of the above?
None.
Now, since it says oil and water, then the correct answer is none, because the only way to prevent water and oil from building up is to drain the tanks, and that's not in there.
And this was one of the questions when I took the test, and it says like how many times should, like once a week or once a day?
Okay, that's a different question, but what's the answer to that question?
I don't know.
Every day. At the end of every day. End of every day is when you're supposed to drain your tanks. End of every day. Oop, what the heck did I just do here? I didn't answer it. That's what the problem is. Okay. One more and then we're done here. It takes tractor trailers without trailers longer to stop than a tractor trailer loaded to maximum gross. No, it's true. Again, the empty truck is not going to stop very well. You wouldn't think that. You know, a light car is going to stop quicker than a heavier car. But we're talking about cars. Okay? We're talking about cars. All right. So, get your certified birth certificate. You need that. Go through this. Find the test your knowledge boxes. Go back into the section where that box is. Highlight that information. That gives you a perfect study guide. And then go to cdltest.co for practice tests. Any questions? All right, that's my class. Thanks for coming. Have a good day. More important, have a safe day. You guys in Hudson, go out of the classroom now, take a right, go back in the lab in the back, and hook up with Tom and Gary, and they'll give you the rest of the instruction for the day. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.